Welcome to the Driven Young podcast with Byron Dempsey, dedicated to educating and inspiring the younger generation around entrepreneurship and practical life skills we aren't taught in school. Created for young people who seek direction in establishing their goals and passions. This podcast provides a platform for discussing the steps taken by professionals in their field related to handling finances, making money online, starting a business, growing a network, and much more. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Are you insecure? Is being insecure normal? Well guys, welcome back to the Driven Young podcast, and today's guest is known as Australia's leading insecurity coach and has one of the leading voices globally in dealing with personal insecurity. He is the voice behind the popular 1 Minute Coach radio segment, heard by over 500,000 daily listeners featured on stations all around Australia. He has devoted his life to helping leaders, entrepreneurs, and those with ambition to overcome insecurity so they can show up to their life unhindered by doubt, fear, and self-limiting beliefs. Jaemin Frazer. Now, I know all this sounds pretty fancy and a bit woo-wah, right? I get it. But in this conversation, Jaemin dives deep into what insecurity is and how to overcome it. Because let's face it, guys, everybody has insecurity in some form or another. Chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you have some sort of insecurity. And now, thanks to social media, our generation is facing insecurities never seen before by previous generations. Jaemin is going to present you with practical takeaway tips and strategies to help reduce or remove your insecurity. These have been proven to work with his clients, and chances are they can greatly reduce any insecurities you might be struggling with. So guys, I really hope you enjoy this interview, and if you want to follow along or reach out to me, I will be posting videos of this interview on social media, and you can reach out to me there. Just search Byron Dempsey or Driven Young Podcast on Instagram or your preferred platform. Now, over to Jaemin.
Jaemin, welcome so much to the podcast. Super excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Byron. Great to be here.
So you specialize in what you call the Insecurity Project. That's your business, your company. So I'm super excited to get into what that's all about. But just to get started, did you want to tell me a bit about you? How did you get to where you are? Did you know this is where you were going to be when you were younger?
Yeah, right.
How did you get into it?
Look, so I didn't peak at high school. I was having a conversation with my wife yesterday, actually, about, remember the kids that peaked at high school? That certainly wasn't me. So I was a bit of a nerd at school. I found it hard to make friends. Yeah. I was a school captain, but that's just because I was a good kid. I was kind of a responsible kid. I had ambitions of being in the army. I thought getting into engineering. I did engineering as work experience and kind of thought I could combine that in the army and have it paid for and kind of develop some leadership.
But best of both worlds.
Absolutely, yeah. But as it turned out, I made it through all the ADFA pre-testing till the final one, and actually got done for drugs on the final.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. Which the forks in the road, right? At an 18th birthday party, just after we finished school, one of my best mates gave me a plate of hash cookies, and naive, never been drunk, never experienced drugs before, humming into these hash cookies, thinking this is great, not realising that was going to change my whole life.
Yeah, wow, okay. So it wasn't intentional?
No, not at all, because
I
didn't even know.
That's rough.
And then the testing a week later, I still didn't know. And then, the officer says, son, tell me when was the last time you experimented with marijuana? I'm like, never. He says, well, the tests don't lie, instant out. And, amazing, because I didn't see my friend for 10 years after that. And I bumped into him in an alleyway in Goulburn. It was just a very awkward encounter. And he nearly cried, honestly, because he'd been carrying the impact of that for 10 years. And he said, I'm so sorry. But I said, no, you saved my life. I don't know what I was thinking. And that was a moment of grace. I thought that's what I wanted. So
blessing in disguise.
Blessing in disguise. So it completely changed my path. I ended up going to Bible college instead. Yeah. And a very different career path, and based out of an intention to think about more meaning for my own life and adding meaning to others. So didn't go down the kind of engineering path and ended up working with people. Got a job in my local church as a youth pastor for 2 years, and then 2 years later was given the responsibility for the whole church when I was 23. So that was the path I walked for 10 years.
So you went from wanting to be engineer to people peers, which is
exactly
arguably completely different.
Completely different.
They talk about engineering are very not people focused. They're very analytical numbers. And then you've got like nurses or something, which are much more people focused.
Yeah.
And so you've gone into a people focused industry.
I know. And incredible. And I think looking back over my life, how did I get here? The only way I can really answer that is by walking through doors. So I think you never really know what's on the other side of the door, but the only way to find out is to step through. And then one door leads to the next door and the next one. So I think I've just kept walking through doors, and if I didn't like what was on the other side, well, I went back and found another one, but just kept finding myself by doing some stuff and exploring that. So
it's the same as me, actually.
Yeah, really.
I just kind of like, I didn't know where, like every year I kind of go, where I am is so different to where I was the year before.
Yeah.
And I know next year I'll be even more different.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you just walk through these doors, meet new people,
Yeah.
so on and so on, which I find exciting. I like not knowing where I'm going to be.
Well, it is
in a year's
exciting.
Time.
Yeah, for sure. So I was a pastor for 10 years. I was a frustrated pastor by the end of that time, because in the Christian experience, one of the great challenges I find is that people outsource the change work to God.
Yeah.
So as a pastor, you're invited into people's world to have conversations about the meaningful things, the challenges with their marriage, with their family, with their finances, and you're talking about change, but the conversations very rarely led to change. And so I'm a curious person. I'm a pragmatic person. I ask questions. I want to know why. And I think that curiosity kept leading me through doors. I got exposed to the coaching skill set when I invited a friend of mine to come run a spiritual retreat for our church, and he introduced some tools that blew my mind, and I was so fascinated by the implications of some clever thinking in human behavioral science that I thought, these are missing tools. I've always had this intention to be useful. These tools could actually equip me
to implement you.
Yeah.
As opposed to just kind of talk about
just talk about exactly these endless conversations. And so I dived through. I thought, this feels true. It feels real. There's one of my mottos, walk through doors. Another one is go where the life is. So if something feels like there's life, well, even if I don't know everything about it, I'm inclined to go there. And something feels like death, well, I'm inclined to close that door and leave that. So I pursued.
And that's something that, like, as soon as you kind of discovered it, you're super passionate about it.
Absolutely.
So is this like kind of the one thing, if you were to say, this is my passion when I discovered it, would it be this moment?
Yeah, it was, but it felt like it wasn't like I didn't make a complete shift. It was, the passion had been to be useful to people, to help people think about growth and change, and my own life to do the same. And so it was just a continuation on that path, but maybe a better vehicle. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
A better form. One of my great mentors talks about the difference between substance and form, and often we get locked into a form. Looking back over my life, I'm really grateful I never got locked into one way of showing up. Thinking I had to do it this way. I did it that way until it stopped making sense, and then found a bigger way to do the thing I was trying to do. So then I kind of stepped outside of the church world. I was a school chaplain at my local high school for a while. And then after 2 years, I had a crack and started my own coaching business.
Awesome. And that's where you are now.
Yeah, so 10 years later, through many different iterations, and always with a passion to have transformational conversations. Like I have an aversion to behavior management. I don't like just try harder, just be better, just be more disciplined. I think there's always deeper conversations.
How do you actually be more disciplined?
Yeah, what's going on beneath the surface? So always passionate about that, and the exploration of what was going on and what was causing things always led me down the path of limiting beliefs. There's a story underneath this. It's hard to see, it's scary, but if we can have that conversation, I reckon that's going to be transformational. So I just kept building my skill set around having those kind of conversations, and realizing that insecurity probably was the most vulnerable conversation to have, but perhaps the most transformational.
And perhaps the most difficult?
Perhaps the most difficult, absolutely. And for that reason, not many people have good conversations around that.
And that's why I guess you wanted to attack that niche, I guess.
Well, it is. And I had lots of advice not to brand myself with such a negative word. People are insecure about being insecure. So
who's going to come talk to an insecurity coach? You're too insecure to do that.
That's exactly right. But I kind of thought, I get it. And I get maybe it's not good business sense, but this is the problem that I am most passionate about solving. I feel like this is what I was born to do. So I reckon if I was to do that with the authenticity and solve it first in my own life and show up as me in that space, I think I could add value and may as well talk about the elephant in the room and get good about helping people do a difficult conversation. So
no, I think 100% follow your passion, be authentic about it.
You got to embody it.
And the business will come.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've done that through writing a book, starting a podcast, you're regularly talking on stage, so getting your name out there. And did you write the book before you started the business, or was that?
Well, the book is 3 years old, so the business is 10 years old.
Okay, yeah.
The Insecurity Project as a brand is only 18 months old, but it's all the same stuff, but I hadn't packaged it like that.
Cool. And so when you came out of high school, you wanted to be an engineer, you said, in the army. So it's a huge shift. And so, a lot of people kind of get stressed going, what do I want to do in high school? Oh, I want to do this. And then they're doing a degree and they go, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. And I think it's just kind of like, just relax. I know heaps of people who did a degree and are doing something completely different as their career. Is that a common thing you see?
It is, because how could you possibly know when
you're 17?
When you're 17,
yeah, exactly.
You've got to work out some stuff.
That's what school expects, though.
Well, they do. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of cultural expectations. And even the question around purpose, what is my purpose? I think this need to find my purpose at a young age, I think ends up causing people to drive themselves into something that looks really good, but is just an attempt to validate their own existence.
Yeah.
I think the real work is to actually work out that you matter first, separate from what you do, then you come to the world with your cup full, then you're actually able to discover something more meaningful and purpose-driven.
Yeah.
That's actually bigger than you and not even about you.
So maybe it's more like, because people think, oh, what's my purpose at 17?
Yeah.
But really, you're probably not going to discover it until at least, your 20s or later on. I'm not sure if I've got mine yet.
Sure. For sure, walk through doors and go where the life is.
Yeah.
And that's a good overarching narrative to help you explore, sniff out, taste, give yourself permission to work it out on the journey.
So just relax. You're not going to find your purpose at 17.
I don't think so.
Not many people do.
Yeah. I'm sure there are some.
Yeah, and I think it adds a lot of stress to everyone. They go, everyone seems to think that everyone else has it.
Yeah, that's right.
But no one else has it. You're just the same.
Yeah.
Just kind of relax. You'll figure it out. Give it time. People, Colonel Sanders started KFC in his 70s or something.
Yeah, lots of stories of people finding that really late in life. Yeah, and I think a big part of the insecurity stuff is that it's managing the expectation of others. So typically, to validate our own existence, we like to keep others happy with us and find approval and acceptance. And often that means doing what they want us to do.
And that's what insecurity is, isn't it? When it comes down to it, it's kind of how you're insecure about what other people think of you. Yeah. Is that, what is insecurity?
Well, it is. It's the need to be validated. It's the need to answer the question, am I good enough? Do I matter? What is my value? And so every person goes from a space of owning that internally as an infant. You think about toddlers when they come into the world, 0 to 2, every toddler is acutely aware of their inherent value and worth, as evidenced by the fact the moment they have an issue, what do?
Cry.
Exactly. They demand the adults in their world come and solve their problem immediately without any care if they're tired, busy, watching TV on the toilet, asleep. It's like, hey, listen, I'm so important. I demand you come. But then it's hard for children to hang on to that as they get older because they're less cute. Parents are more busy. They don't get that reflected back.
Also got the intelligence to know, they're on the toilet.
Exactly.
I don't want to bother them if I was on the toilet.
Well, for sure. But it starts this question, maybe my value is not as high as I thought. So then how do I get valued? Well, I make sure I get it from the people, the adults in my world, by playing by the rules.
Yeah.
What have I got to do to be liked? What have I got to do to fit in? What have I got to do to have you approve of me and accept me? And then begins this external strategy to meet your own need for significance. So that's the challenge. And most people never find a way to take that responsibility back again and be the one that validates their own existence. So they're constantly driven by what others expect of them or what others want for them or the path others think they should take. And that, is from a real insecure space.
Yeah. And so would you say everyone is insecure to a degree? Is it normal? Do you think, is it introverted people more insecure, extroverted? What do you kind of see as the main causes of insecurity?
Yeah, sure. I think everyone goes through it. It is a human problem. It is a universal issue because it is part of our quest to become adults. The journey to be an adult is a journey around who am I and do I matter. So that is a journey through insecurity. There's no other way around it.
Yeah.
And I think most people never find a way really of solving the insecurity problem long term. They just find ways of plugging gaps.
Yeah.
And
pushing it aside.
Yeah, suppressing it or filling their life so full of performance and achievement and possessions and approval that they feel okay in the moment, but their bucket leaks all the time. So they're constantly needing more stuff to fill it. So to do the adult work of validating yourself and cutting off all the external things. I'm not my job. I'm not what my friends think of me. I'm not what my family think of me. I'm what I think of me, and kind of owning that. It's difficult work.
Definitely.
But very meaningful work. And I think it's the definition of fully being an adult is to be self-sufficient, not just physically and financially, but emotionally and intellectually and, resourcefully own your own space.
It's funny you mentioned, family, friends, people around you, but I think in today people are they're insecure about that, but they're also insecure about people they've never met who are liking their photos online through social media. You're now insecure about tens of thousands of people instead of just the core people you actually know. What are your thoughts on kind of social media and how it impacts, especially kind of the younger generation in terms of insecurity? If they're not getting the likes they want or whatever it is.
I think social media has just sped up the process and exacerbated the issue, made it more painful for people because there's this constant loop of feedback. Instantly you're getting feedback from the world. So, and it's with you all the time because technology is a constant presence. So I think it leads to some more acute sense of insecurity just because you can't escape from it. There's very few safe places where you're not getting that feedback. Yeah,
I think it's pretty crazy as well. I'm not, because you got things like Snapchat, Instagram, and stories. So you're seeing what people are doing live. You didn't get invited to a party. Normally, it wouldn't actually matter. Okay, I didn't get invited to a party, but now you see it from all these different angles of people at the party. You see 10 different photos go up the day afterwards. It's just constantly berating in your face. And so I imagine insecurity for the younger generation would definitely have been sped up thanks to social media.
For sure. And I think that the real issue of insecurity is that it does lead to madness. So it creates mental instability because it creates obsession. Like we're seeing young people with some severe mental challenges from the obsessiveness coming by this constant feedback and real-time feedback from social media.
Yeah.
So hence the need to find some ways of thinking about this problem clearly to bring back some mental health.
And how do we do that? How do we kind of get out of the insecurity of thinking of what other people think about us, of just kind of being able to just do what we want to do without worrying about being judged?
I mean, all insecurity, it's built on a backstory. It's built on a work of fiction. So we're storytellers.
Yeah.
We go into the world and we have experiences, but we decide what those experiences mean. So every single thing that happens, we're answering two questions. Why did this happen? And what does it mean about me? So you see your friends at a party, you didn't get an invite. Unconsciously, whether you're aware of it or not, you are asking and answering those questions. Why did that just happen? Why did I not get picked? What does that mean about me? And in the absence of high quality stories, we're left to tell negative stories about ourselves and decide the reason that happened was we're not as good as that person, we're not as attractive, we're not as cool. Not as cool.
Yeah.
So the problem is with us. So that's unavoidable. I think, it would be silly to say, don't do that, we should never do that. That's going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
We are going to tell stories that diminish ourselves. I think the way out of it is just to understand the nature of story. It's to understand the fact that the world is not concrete. The world is not this objective reality. It's our experience. We bring ourselves to the world, and therefore we're not the actor in the story, we're the storyteller.
Yeah.
So the better we get at telling stories that are actually good for us and kind towards us, and stories that give ourselves permission to be us without anything to prove and defend, the more stable we become, the more secure we become. So our ability to notice when we've told unkind stories and stories that have let us down and held us back.
Unkind stories to yourself?
Exactly. That's, one of the big discoveries is that around insecurity is often people think the reason I'm insecure is because what has been said and done to me. So it's your fault. You are unkind to me, therefore I'm insecure.
Yeah.
The amazing thing is you're actually not the bully in the story. You don't have the power to diminish me. it's not your opinion of me that impacts me. It's when you said unkind things, I decided you were telling the truth. I decided that's actually right. So I agreed with you. And in doing so, I became the bully. I'm the one bullying myself. And so I created my own insecurity, which is interesting because it means if I created this, then I'm the only one who can fix it. If I think you created it, then I need you to fix it.
Yeah.
So typically people think this problem exists outside them. They live in the victim space, and then they're looking outside themselves to fix it. So they're craving more external validation.
Yeah, right.
You know, they just think if I can write on my mirror that I'm awesome, or if I can have enough positive influence or enough people encourage me, it'll all be okay. But it turns out
the positive will outweigh the negative.
Yeah, but it turns out until you decide you're worthwhile, all the positive input in the world gets filtered out anyway because you don't even believe it's true.
So how would we apply this to the party scenario, right? You don't get invited to a party. You're now going, oh, what does he think of me or she think of me? Am I not cool enough to fit in? How do I change that story so it's not negative and I'm not bullying myself, essentially?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, there's 100 different stories that could be told and none of them are true.
Yeah.
So we'll find evidence for whatever we believe is true. You know, if you believe that no one likes you, then even when people come and say kind and loving things,
you're not going to listen.
Well, and you'll think they're trying to get something from you.
Yeah, right.
But if I think you like me, even if you don't, and you're trying to hurt me, you'll come and say something unkind. You'll exclude me. You'll pick on me. You do something, and I'll think, what's happening here? Clearly, he likes me. Why wouldn't he like me? Maybe he's jealous. Maybe he's having a bad day.
Yeah.
Maybe he needs a hug. I wonder what's happening in his world because clearly this is not about me.
Yeah.
I love Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements, and you know, he just says there's lots of cool things. I could get distracted going down that path, but the point of my story is agreement number 2 is don't take anything personally, and that's we all kind of get I shouldn't take anything personally, but the real cool wisdom behind that sentiment is the idea that it's actually not about you. So the people who've excluded you, it's actually not about you. It's about them. Maybe they're trying to prove something. Maybe they get to feel better about themselves by being the bully. Maybe they're hurting. And their way of giving themselves value is to try and prove that they're better than other people. You know, maybe someone else was picking on you, and so to get their affection, they had to exclude you, you know.
And so when you have this mindset and it happens to you, instead of going, oh no, what's wrong with me? You're just going, oh, what's wrong with them? Maybe they haven't had a bad day.
That's exactly right. You just kind of step back and go, there's 100 stories that could be told here. Which story would I like to tell? Which is the story that's going to serve me and them moving forward?
Not the one where it's, what's wrong with me?
Exactly. That's the story that's going to be natural and you're going to jump towards. But that story is no more true than everybody here likes me. Why wouldn't they? Neither of those stories are true. How would you know which one's true?
Yeah.
You think you don't know which one's true. May as well pick the one that's better for you. May as well pick the one that's more fun. You may as well pick the one that helps you sleep at night. So
shift your mindset.
It is, but by being aware of the fact that you are the storyteller, you're not the victim in the story. It like, you know, people say it is what it is. You know, that's one of the strangest ideas. It doesn't even make sense. It is what it is. That's not even true. It is what you make it. Because 5 people all having the same experience are all telling different stories about what that experience meant and why it happened. And who's true and who's false? Well, you know, all of them and none of them. So the world is as we experience it, and we have the ability to change it. So it's kind of realizing how powerful we are as creatures.
Yeah.
Stepping out of the victim space, realizing we're not the actor here. We're the storyteller. We're the one with the pen and paper writing scripts about what's happening. And based on the quality of those scripts determines the quality of what we experience now and into the future.
Yeah, cool. I love that. That's awesome.
It's game changing.
Because I mean, you know, the party thing is a pretty minor thing.
Well, it could be, but little things become big things.
But, you know, multiplied, you know, 10 parties. Because after the 10th party you're being invited to, then it's hard not to go, what's wrong with me?
Well, even if for the first party, you decide the reason why you didn't get invited was because no one likes you.
Yeah.
Then at school the next day, you're weird and awkward. And you're weird and awkward. So then what are they saying about why you're weird and awkward? Do they think he's better than me?
Yeah.
Maybe they just forgot. Maybe they're trying to be focused on everyone to invite, and somehow your name didn't get on the list. So maybe there was no intention at all. But now at school tomorrow, you're weird and awkward. and they're thinking, what's his problem?
Yeah.
So then I'm not inviting you next time.
Yeah,
so then
right.
it creates this whole
Butterfly effect.
exactly
almost.
right.
Yeah.
In deconstructing people's stories, because I get the privilege of wading back into people's life and going, all story is built on defining moments, key moments in time where stuff happened and you put a meaning on it, diminished you. So helping people uncover that.
Yeah.
It's never the big stuff. It's these little moments that in your world were everything, but everyone else didn't even notice there was a thing.
But it's how you reacted to that.
It's how you reacted, and you decided it was true. The moment you decided it was true, then your brain looks to confirm that bias and find evidence, and then you're just stacking evidence. It becomes then your whole filter for life.
So we're going back to this example. We've got, he didn't get invited to the party. He goes, he thinks it's something to do with him. He starts acting weird at school. People go, oh, I'm not inviting him.
Yeah.
And really, it might have been something tiny, but if we flip it, this person goes, okay, maybe they just forgot. Who cares? It's just one party. There's heaps of parties at school, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
He goes to school. He's fine, blah, blah, blah. And then, I don't know what it could be, but then the reverse would be, oh, hey, he's actually quite cool. Let's invite him.
Exactly. Or imagine he goes, oh, my goodness. I'm sure they didn't mean to exclude me, but I noticed there were 3 other kids that didn't get invited as well. I wonder how they're feeling. What I'm going to do next week, I'm going to have a party. I want to make sure those 3 are the center of attention.
Yeah, okay.
My whole intention, I clearly, this didn't even affect me because clearly it was just a mistake. It was an oversight. But I'm not sure that they got that. I reckon they thought it was about them. So I'm going to be useful to them. So again, as a whole range of options, you can decide. If you're the storyteller, you've got the pen and paper.
Yeah.
Well,
and we could just go on for hours, different stories.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's all story. That's the cool thing. It's not what's true or false.
Yeah. Because you don't know what people are thinking.
You don't know what people are thinking, and you could never know what people are thinking. And it's dangerous to assume. So if you're going to imagine what people are thinking, you may as well imagine they're thinking good things rather than imagining they're thinking the worst.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was a massive shift for me, especially when I went in to be school chaplain, because I had this limiting story when I was at high school that no one likes me and it's hard to make friends. And day one of being school chaplain, the principal said, righto, Jaemin, here's the job. You're not a teacher, you're not a parent, you're a chaplain. Just go and be here for all these 900 kids. I'm thinking, I can't be friends to 900 kids.
Yeah.
I couldn't be friends to 9 kids when I was at school. This is a disaster. I'm going to get beaten up. These kids are too cool for school.
Yeah.
Here I am wading in, trying to be friends for everybody. This is a disaster. So I wanted to go and hide in my office and wait till the needy kids come find me. But that wasn't the job description. So I thought, I've got all this evidence that this story is true. It's hard to make friends and people don't naturally like me. But I thought, but what if that story is not true? Sure, I've got all this evidence that it's true, but that's all I could have. So I decided, what story would I like to tell? In fact, first I thought, well, in order to be a great school chaplain, which is what I want, what would I need to believe in order to be a great school chaplain? I'd have to believe that everybody here likes me. Why wouldn't they? Now, clearly I don't believe that's true.
Yeah.
But I kind of went, but what if my old belief is no more true? What if I got 2 equally untrue beliefs? Which one would I like? I'm going to choose this one, that everybody here likes me. Why wouldn't they? So literally, I get out of the car and I'd have to put that belief on like a jumper. Everybody here likes me. Why wouldn't they? Everybody here likes me. Why wouldn't they? Everybody here likes me. Why wouldn't they? And you can imagine how different that was when I went up to kids. If I think it's hard to make friends, I want you to like me, but I'm not sure you would.
Come off desperate.
I'm going to, can I buy you a sausage roll from the can?
Yeah.
I'm going to try and tell funny stories. And the kids are going to walk off going, what a douche. Are you serious? Did you see that guy?
The cringe teacher.
I know. The teacher who wants to be everyone's friend. Oh, no. But if I'm relaxed, I'm here to serve the school. And I say, what a great opportunity. And I know you already like me, because why wouldn't you, right? I can go up to you. Yeah, it's not even about me. I can be engaged in you. I can listen. It's going to go well. And even if it doesn't, even if you talk about me behind my back when we walk off, I think you like me. So I'll delete that anyway. And I'll go about my day. The amazing thing about that was I used to do this thing on assembly. They called me Chapo, and I did Chapo's Thought of the Week.
Yeah.
I had 2 minutes on assembly, and it had to be funny, meaningful, memorable, and it was high stakes.
Yeah.
But it was just a really great experience for me developing my speaking skill set. The last day being chaplain, where I announced to the school that I was going to pursue my own desires, passions, and start my own coaching business, I got a standing ovation from every single kid in the school. And the principal said, no one has ever experienced that in the history of this school. And I thought, that is incredible. I would not have got that result had I hung on to that old story that nobody likes me and it's hard to make friends.
Yeah.
Look at this. I got all the evidence I need. Everyone here likes me. Why wouldn't they? Well, it's just a story.
Yeah.
And it's a story that worked for me.
But flip the story.
Flip the story. That's the story that got that made me a great school chaplain because of that story.
Which is hard to do.
Hard to do, but when you kind of get how this works, you kind of take a step back and rather than going, well, it is what it is. This is just my lot. This is who I am.
Yeah.
It's clear that nobody likes me. It's like, well, I know it looks so real and true. It's just a story.
Yeah.
And you're the one telling the story, by the way. So you could tell a better story.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. So one thing I also wanted to bring up was, because I'm not sure what the answer to this is, men and women, different insecurities.
Yeah.
Do you approach it differently? Is there a different system for women to use? Obviously, you probably use a story script for everyone, but I know you've got like 7 different stages in kind of overcoming the insecurity.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between men and women? What do you find?
No, I don't think there is. I think it is a deeply human problem. So everyone feels their problem is complicated and unique because they experience it in their own skin. So it feels like that. But I think the cool thing around insecurity is it's very predictable. It's universal. It's a human issue. So,
most people have the same insecurities.
well, whether it shows up differently in different ways, which it will because we have our own experience, underneath it all is this fear of not being enough. That doesn't discriminate male or female, rich or poor, young or old. That's still a fear we're going to face. If we don't face it, it will consume us. So no different male and female. I think there's a difference in, more women are willing to deal with it in my experience. I think culturally men are still more reluctant to have meaningful conversations around deeper issues than women. But the path, the process, the practices in solving it are no different.
Do you think that's, kind of that toxic masculinity, I'm tough, I don't have that problem? And women are much more likely to talk?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's more acceptable. Yeah, I think there's some cultural things. I think there's probably some biological things, that just make it more natural for women to talk about it. But, I think we each have our own challenges. Like a challenge that women have more often than men is that women tend to go last. So many more women lose themselves in the word mother. And define themselves by that role, and so kind of meet their significance by being the person who raises a family. There's not many men that put their life on hold for family.
Unfortunately.
Well, sure. I'm not saying good or bad, right or wrong. It's just the expression of this insecurity comes out differently in different ways. But the path to solving it is exactly the same.
Right. And so so you said the story. That's one technique that I think is really cool.
Yeah.
What other techniques do you use? Or does it depend on the person?
Well, no. Again, it doesn't depend on the person because, again, what looks like complicated and unique is predictable, and the process is simple and hard. So my work has been around deconstructing the path that people who have solved the insecurity problem and given themselves permission to show up to life unhindered by doubt and fear and able to be at their best where it matters most. They've actually followed the same path, whether they were aware of it or not. There have been key things that they've practiced and practiced well. So my job is to go, well, if I could make that path really clear, then people could get better at following that and follow it more clearly. So those 7 things, would it be useful to quickly touch on them? Or
you've brought up the story. Is that number 1?
No, number 1 is to step into the light. Yeah. So just Yoda says, named must your fear be before banish it you can. So people typically solve the problems where the pain shows up. So they see pain in their relationship, so they think they have a relationship problem. Or they see pain in their career, so they think they have a career problem. Or they see pain in their motivation or their procrastination.
It is deeper.
Yeah, so they solve it where they see it. But
have you seen Tony Robbins' documentary?
I'm Not Your Guru?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's what he does.
Of course.
The woman, she's just like, oh, my diet's bad. Yeah. And he talks to her for 20 minutes. And it's like
nothing
to do with her diet.
Exactly right. So the first step is to turn the light on and see what is the problem here. Are you sure you've identified the problem? Because if you haven't diagnosed the problem, then all effort, energy, time, money spent fixing it is wasted. Because
How
you're
do
just
we-
treating the symptoms.
How do we figure out what the problem is?
Great. So the question is, think about what you're most afraid of. So typically people would be afraid of one or two things if they're really honest: failure or rejection. They would be universal. And when if they're really honest, okay, do you know what? Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Or I'm really afraid that people are going to reject me.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that's actually not what you're afraid of. Because if you think about both those two fears logically, if failure is the deepest level of your fear, we're in trouble. Because what's the only way of protecting yourself from future failure?
Current failure
Well, the only way of never failing again.
is to fail and learn.
No. Like if you're afraid of failure and you never want to fail again.
Oh, not do anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only possible solution. Do you know what I mean?
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense because clearly people who succeed fail all the time. They fail often, fail quickly.
And that's what I was thinking. I was like, how do you learn from failure? By failing.
And that's what makes no sense, right? So clearly, to solve the fear of failure problem if that's the fear,
That's not an option.
that's not an option. Great. So the cool thing is that's actually not what you're afraid of. Fear is more personal than that. Fear of failure is outside there. It's the implications of failure you're afraid of. So the question is, if you were to fail, what does that say about you? That I am a failure.
I'm not good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you've turned the light on. Now you've identified what you're actually afraid of. You're afraid of your own opinion of yourself. Cool. Confronting, vulnerable, but at least we're on the right paddock now. At least we've named the right fear. At least we know what the monster is. So you can't solve it if you can't see it. Or rejection's the same. Oh, I'm afraid people will reject me. Well, no, you're not afraid of being rejected because the only way to protect yourself from ever being rejected again...
So never put yourself out there.
Don't ever put yourself out there or obsess about pleasing every single person in the whole world. Neither of those are believable plans. But thankfully, that's actually not what you're afraid of. Same question. And if you were to be rejected, what does that say about you? That I'm not worthy of love.
Yeah.
That there's something inadequate with me. I'm afraid that I'm no good. Again, your own opinion of yourself. That's what you're afraid of. Vulnerable, scary, I get it. But at least now you've turned the light on. At least now you're not trying to solve a rejection problem or a failure problem. You're actually solving the insecurity problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. So it's not surface level.
It's not.
And very few people will actually, especially younger people, they'll just immediately think it's surface level.
Well, not just young people, everyone.
Yeah. Without going, okay, what actually is it? And so I guess that's great examples. It's going failure. What's wrong with failure? Oh, I've got my own opinion on myself.
Yeah, it's the implications of failure.
So I guess for failure, you fail, then you use a story to flip the script. Is that what you would do?
Well, no. So I'd use that example just to highlight what it is that's actually the problem, which is insecurity. So then let's not even worry about failure or rejection. Let's focus on insecurity.
Yeah.
So if that's the problem, cool, how do we fix this? So then the second thing is around the story piece because you're kind of thinking, well, why am I insecure? Where did this insecurity come from? So I know in my own life, when I started asking that question, because there was massive insecurity that limited me for a number of years. And when I started exploring why am I insecure, I went back to moments of pain and loss and disappointment and hurt through my childhood. There were key moments where, certain things happened, certain people did or said things that really affected me and I could still feel that pain. I thought that's why I'm insecure.
Yeah.
But the game-changing idea was the fact that, hang on a minute, life is not about what happens to us. It's about the meaning we place on the things that happen to us. So therefore, I'm not the actor in the story, I'm the storyteller.
Yeah.
So I am responsible. I'm the one who created this insecurity, not anyone else. So it wasn't created outside of me, so therefore it's not going to be solved outside of me either.
Yeah.
So the second practice is to take responsibility. All change comes through responsibility.
So we've got the first practice, shine a light on it.
Step into the light.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
First of all, figure out what are you actually insecure, or what is your...
What's the problem
what's your
here?
fear?
What's the problem? Yeah. What's actually wrong here? Is there a health problem, a finance problem, a relationship problem, a failure problem, a procrastination problem? It turns out it's an insecurity problem. That's useful.
So I guess health would come down to insecurity as well. Like, why do you want to be healthy? Because I'm insecure in my body. I'm insecure of what people think about me when I'm at the beach.
Weight is a classic one. Extra weight. I have a big sweeping statement that I'd say is almost always true, that extra weight is always a hideout. So people think they've got a weight problem, but in fact, weight is serving them. It's protecting them from being found out. If they were to show up at their best where it matters most, they're afraid they're inadequate. It's going to increase their chances of being rejected. So if they never show up at their best, Well, they never get found out as
Yeah,
inadequate. So they think they've got a weight problem. It's got nothing to do with their weight. Their weight, in fact, is serving them and protecting them from that fear. It's a deeper level.
Yeah, right.
Confronting, but it's incredible. You get clear on what the problem is, then it's exciting because you can solve it.
It's fascinating.
Step into the light, take responsibility. 3 is to stack the pain. So pain is a loving gift designed to help us change. But most people use pain against themselves. So whatever we link pain to, we avoid. So people link pain to uncertainty, to change, to what's different, to sticking out. And so every cell in their body is avoiding those things.
Yeah.
But if you were to link pain to the cost of insecurity, then everything inside of you becomes more and more motivated to go, right, I got to find a way to deal with this fear. Because if I don't, it's going to lead to madness. Only more pain can happen if I don't fix this now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you'd think just by the fact that insecurity is a painful thing, everyone would be immediately motivated to fix it. But smoking is a great example of our ability to avoid pain. Anyone who smokes in today's world is proof of this. Grotesque images on cigarette packaging. You'd think just because there's a bad image, that would naturally cause people to link pain to that. But we can avoid it. We can pretend it's not there. We can just ignore, suppress that and focus on the pleasure.
I know someone who's, they'll say, oh, my uncle's 95. He's been smoking his entire life.
Exactly.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah. So they focus on stories of pleasure, not stories of pain. But if you were to stack the pain of smoking and focus exactly on how much it's costing you now and into your future, then every cell in your body would have this repulsion toward it, and you have this motivation, this inbuilt motivation away from smoking. So the insecurity is the same. It turns out feeling shit about yourself is supposed to feel shit. That's the point. And leaning into that pain is actually a loving gift to go, hey, this is not how you're supposed to feel. And it's okay. That's good.
Yeah.
It's going to help you be motivated to do whatever it takes to go face these fears and work through the process so that you can come out the other side not feeling insecure. Is that?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's, the smoking is a good example. I guess it's kind of just, is the addictiveness, greater than the pain? Or is it, it's just, that's kind of the deciding factor. It's like, because everyone knows smoking's bad nowadays.
Sure.
Yeah, people still do
it
because they love they're addicted to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think addiction's at its essence and about an escape from reality. If you, it's a seeking to escape something about your life that you don't like or can't control. But that's a side issue. The point around this is to change insecurity. Everyone who has changed insecurity and solved that problem has linked enough pain so they create this threshold moment in their life where it's like, this is a journey into pain and fear. It's hard to deal with this, but they get this point where it's like, if I don't deal with this, it's only going to get worse. So the pain of change becomes less than the pain of staying the same.
So if we're people that were at home and they had a piece of paper and they want to go, okay, how do I help fight this insecurity?
Yeah.
Step 1, they should write down what is my fear?
Yeah, for sure.
And then just kind of go through, okay, I'm fear of this. Okay, that's the surface level. But what is it really?
Exactly.
And then just kind of dot point, it's actually this, and combined.
It's the implications, make it personal, shine the lights. Yeah. Then get clear that they created it, not someone else.
Yeah.
On the key moments, they decided the reason that happened by answering these 2 questions. Why did this happen and what does it mean about me? 3, just to focus on the cost and look at any examples of people who haven't found a way of solving insecurity and the mental instability that's created for them. And just to stack it, just to go, man, if I don't find a way out of this, it's all my hopes and dreams are going to get swallowed up in this. I'll keep showing up at my worst where it matters most. I'll obsess about what others think about me. It's going to affect my health, my finances, my relationships. But then 4, because if it's just about avoiding pain, typically what people do with weight loss is just link pain. And so there's massive pain, but then, in 12 weeks, they've lost 10 kilos.
They link pain. What's the pain they're linking to?
So when people go on a big weight loss process, it's often because, pain, they stack the pain. For whatever reason, they've all of a sudden caught sight of themselves in a mirror, or someone's made fun of them. I can still remember going down the street with my daughter when she was 5, and we're in this shop, and she says at the top of her voice, "Hey Dad, why is that lady's bum so big?" And you just think, oh no.
Yeah.
And the lady was there and she heard it, but I imagine that would have created massive pain for that
Yeah.
woman. Little kids are stopping in the street and noticing the size of my ass. I got to do something. So that pain motivates her. Go join the gym, chuck out the Tim Tams.
So use pain as a motivator.
Exactly, that's what people do. The problem is if you just use pain as a motivator, 12 weeks later, she's lost 10 kilos. Little kids aren't pointing out the size of her ass. She's feeling better. People are giving her compliments. So the pain's died down.
And then she goes back to where she was.
Because the motivation is just linked to avoiding pain.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you've also got to have a moving towards strategy. Be clear about what you don't want, great, but what do you want instead? Pleasure and pain.
Yeah.
So practice 4 is to develop a compelling life vision. What's the dream? What's the desire? What do you want for your life? What do you think you're capable of?
Yeah.
When you think about your eulogy, what stories will be being told about the impact you had?
So you're using pain to motivate you, but you're also motivating. You also want to have pleasure as a goal to keep.
They are the two.
Forward.
Tony Robbins says they are the two greatest motivators. Everything we do in life is about avoiding pain and pursuing pleasure.
Yeah.
So it's really utilizing that technology that's inbuilt anyway to solve this problem.
So you're going to write a list. What are the pain? What's the pain? Like
do a cost assessment,
Yeah.
accurate cost assessment of, and stack it now and into the future.
Yeah.
And then get clear about, so what are my goals? What do I want? What do I think I'm capable of? What kind of life do I dream of for myself? And that's a hard question.
Very hard question.
I think it's probably the most dangerous question in the world, because if you get clear about what you want, then you open up the potential for failure, disappointment, and rejection. If you don't know what you want, well, then you can't fail and you can't put yourself, you know what I mean? But it is the human question, and it's the adult question.
And say someone's 17 or 20 or something and say, what do you want? I feel like a lot of people would say, I want to be successful. Maybe I want to be loved.
Yeah.
I think quite very broad answers. Is that what or do you try to focus on something much more specific?
Well, they all start at broad, but the process of coaching is to develop well-formed outcomes. That's the term for goals that actually have some structure and substance around them. Because you can't achieve a goal that's abstract. If my goal is to be successful,
what is successful?
You can't get there. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. That none of those can be successful. So to do the work around, what do you mean when you say success? What is success to you?
I think at a young age, people say I want to be successful. They mean I want to be earning $120,000 a year,
exactly.
Which isn't.
And even that, and if you had that, what does that give you? So what does that represent?
Yeah, why do you want that $120,000?
Because it's never about the thing. It's always about what the thing represents. So the harder you work in actually exploring all that's associated with goals and the intention behind them, the easier they are to achieve. So sure, there's some hard work. There's hard work with all of these practices. That's kind of the point. And if you don't do that, then you get stuck. So everyone who's ever solved insecurity has had a quest. They want their life to represent something. They desire to contribute meaningfully. They don't want to just survive and settle. They don't want to die with the music inside them. They want to go do something, and they allow themselves to dive into that desire and create some structure around it. Otherwise, when it all gets hard, like you think about the hero's journey, which represents this, Frodo's got to have a quest.
So just to clarify, the hero's journey is a story written by, who was it?
Well, Joseph Campbell
Campbell.
Summarized the stories that we love throughout time.
And I think Star Wars is a literal take on the hero's journey.
I mean, so is Lord of the Rings, so is Harry Potter. The stories we love follow a consistent arc. Yeah. And it's called the hero's journey. And it kind of really represents the personal development journey. Lots of cool things, and I won't go down the rabbit hole around that. But the point is, the hero always has a quest. If the hero didn't have a quest, when it gets hard, there's no story first, but when it gets hard, what's the point? Yeah. What's the point of pushing into fear and danger if you don't have a reason? There's no quest. Yeah. So solving insecurity is freaking hard. You got to have a big reason. There's got to be a big why. And we all have that inside of us, but it's giving yourself permission to kind of tune into that and develop that.
And what about whys? Like, I just want to be happier.
Again, not enough. It's not strong enough. It's not a compelling vision. There's some work to be done around putting some substance there. So you've got something strong, something driving you when everyone else has given up on you, when you're facing all the hard, when the monster's out there to kill you, you still take another step forward because you are determined that this is the life you're going to have for yourself.
And so what would you say to someone who said that? Like, I just want to be happier.
Well, I just said, we haven't actually told me anything, and that's not going to serve you. That doesn't give you any value. In fact, that will become part of the problem because you think you've got a goal, and you'll end up disappointed and frustrated because you haven't.
Because what is happiness?
What is happiness?
Yeah. How do I? It's an unachievable goal. Almost.
Exactly. So practice 5 is to get help from someone who doesn't care about you. So in the hero's journey, again, there's always a wisdom character. There's a Gandalf, there's a Yoda, there's a Dumbledore.
Yeah, there you go.
and the hero needs them because the hero needs some tools, needs to be equipped. You can't solve insecurity by yourself because we're in our own head so much. We're storytellers, but we think our stories are true. You kind of need the help of someone to pull you outside of your story and just get a bigger perspective to help you see.
And that's not your parents.
It can't be your parents because they care. And the people who care trying to give you advice.
And even if they know you're doing something stupid, they're always going to be caring.
And they want the best for you. They love you. And it's impossible not to speak out of that wanting. And the moment they speak out of wanting, it actually positions them as the expert and it weakens you. It's necessary and useful. You can't avoid it, but they're not the change conversations. When I get to help people solve this, my very first job is to convince them I don't give a shit about them. And I push that as hard as I possibly can. Yeah. Because I say, look, obviously I care, but caring is the least useful I could be. If I care, I'm going to get in the way. Yeah. And then we're going to get confused about who the hero is here. You created this and only you can solve it. My job is to give you what you need and get out of the way. Yeah. And if I care, I'm going to try and give you advice. I'm going to try and fix you. I'm going to pump your tires up. I'm going to weaken you. You're going to depend on me to fix this. And then when I'm not there, you're in trouble. Yeah. So the objectivity is essential from someone who doesn't care. They can get outside and call you when you're in the story, help you get out of story and in the process. Almost. Well, it is. I don't rate accountability because, again, responsibility is practice too. If you need someone to hold you accountable to do something you don't want to do, you haven't taken responsibility yet. Yeah. So I don't think it's accountability. I think it's objectivity and positioning you as the adult, you as the expert. You created this mess and only you can solve this. So positioning you as the storyteller, but giving you the tools and equipping you. So I think the Gandalf Dumbledore metaphor is good because... Yeah,
as you said that, I was analysing all the movies and I was like, there's always one of those characters.
But the point, at some point, they're not there anymore. Yeah. At some point, they're missing. At the crucial moment, it's just the heroes left. Yeah. Which is practice 6.
And they have to rise to the moment.
Go be the hero. Yeah. It's all you. And everyone's waiting. Everyone's holding their breath, watching what's going to happen next, and it's high stakes and you could die, but yet you still walk forward. And so the work of the hero is to actually go fight the dragon. There's this fear that's been taunting you since you were young that you're not enough, you're no good, and you've been running away from that fear, trying to fill that void with all kinds of things so you don't have to face that fear. But now this journey is taking you toward that dragon in that cave. And you got to solve that. You got to ask that question once and for all. Who are you and do you matter? And you either die or you come out the other side.
Stronger.
Exactly. The cool thing around that dragon is it's actually not a dragon. You know, it's in the cave taunting you. You can see this big shadow on the wall and hear this rumble. It's actually a couple of mice playing silly buggers with the tin can and some candles. But you can't see that. Yeah. And no one can tell you that. You've actually got to go face that. Of course, you've always been enough. It's just this story you told yourself in moments of pain when you were young that's become everything. Yeah. So it's deconstructing that all the way back to the start. And then the final part in the process is to rewrite the story. Write beautiful scripts. You've been writing stories that have limited you, stories that have been unkind, stories as the bully. Now write stories as a young adult, stories that give you permission to succeed and flourish. Yeah. Often people want to rush to practice 7. Can't we just, why do we have to go back? Yeah. Why do we have to deal with all this?
Because that's kind of what you started with, was almost the story. Exactly. And I was like, yeah, this is good. But yeah, I can see it's a great process.
If you don't go back, then the moment if you just think it's about affirmations, going to be positive, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to tell myself good stories, going to write stuff on my mirror and journal every day. But if you haven't deconstructed the old story, every time you get tired and stressed and anxious, that's what's coming out, undermining all progress. The work of the hero to solve this, to go back, analyze the data, deconstruct that story. Yeah. Go back when your parents got divorced when you were 4 and that hurt you. Go back and explore what you decided that meant about you. Go change the script. Go undo that story. Go face the dragon. Yeah. Then you give yourself permission to show up at your best where it matters most. Then you're unhindered by doubt, fear, and insecurity.
So that's a 7-step process.
That's 7 practices.
Pretty complicated, but I'm sure people can find out more.
Well, no, not complicated. Simple and hard. Each one of them are simple. Each one. Yeah. But then there's work to be done.
And people can find out more on your website?
Yeah, of course, the insecurityproject.com.
Yeah. So if you just Google that, I saw you got some free ebooks and
yes.
charts and everything with all that information on it.
Mm.
So just before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you one final question. And it's basically, if you had one piece of advice for the younger generation, what would you say to them?
Advice is the dirtiest word in the English language for me at the moment. So I wouldn't presume to give any advice. I wouldn't. I'd ask a question.
Okay.
And I'd say, what do you want? And what are you prepared to do about it? Because off the back of that question, it is the most dangerous question in the whole world, but it is the most powerful and life-giving. And every time someone gives themselves permission to hold the space around what they truly desire, it draws them into a bigger space.
Yeah.
It gives them energy and desire and passion to deal with whatever hindrances get in the way. Every time you lose sight of what you want, you end up settling and surviving, and you dehumanize yourself. So that would be the thing I'd say. The more time you can delve into that question, the more permission you can give yourself to be honest about what it is that you really want for your own life, the more beautiful stories you'll end up writing for yourself.
And it's not an easy question. You shouldn't be listening to this going,
it is the hardest question in the world. Honestly, I think less than 5% of the world's population are good at asking and answering this question. The rest of the 95% end up hiding from that question, and they just help the 5% get what they want.
Yeah.
Bitching and moaning the whole time, but at least they're safe because they can't fail and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's hard being part of the 5%, but that's where the life is as well.
So guys, be a part of the 5%, by the sounds of it. What do you want? And
what are you prepared to do about it?
Yeah. Jaemin, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks.
All right. If you are still here, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode. If you got some value out of it, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on iTunes or shared it with your friends or family. Otherwise, I'll be putting up videos of this episode on Instagram and Facebook. So check it out there at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast. And I'll see you on the next one.